Okay, well, we were able to get a few more folks to arrive. We definitely appreciate your time today. I want to thank you for joining us. I want to touch base on a couple of things before we begin. Recently, you may have received an email from the Mentors Matter at umich.edu, and inside that email were 3 questions that were reflections on this training that we were hoping that we would have an opportunity for you to send to us so that we can see how things went. Also, there is a chat window that is available for you. When we do get to a point during the webinar, we're going to ask a few questions, so we'll use the chat box. You're welcome to use that chat box to send a message directly to us, and we can share that information as we get through to those particular questions. Do want to get started today. Want to introduce myself real quick. My name is Hugh Potter, and I'm a program manager, and I'm joined today by Kevin.
Hi, everybody. It's Kevin Schaff. I'm glad to talk to you again, and I'm the research manager here working with EdPrep and human capital data. We wanted to jump right into the goals and the agenda for today, and then get into some of your reflections and the work we've done over the past fall.
So we'll start that off and think about our goals for today. You know, we had such a great opportunity to join with you, and we had such great partners in this project. You know, we want to thank the universities that partnered with us: Great Hardeman University, Union University, UT Martin, as well as our research partners at the University of Michigan. Lisa and Tracy from the team coaches were absolutely phenomenal. And we did have a lot of internal support within the department to get us to the point where we are today. Office of Educator Licensure and Preparation, the research team, as well as educator effectiveness. But even with all those partners, we really couldn't have had the level of success that we feel like we did without you. And so having you participate in the 2 face-to-face meetings, as well as today and our first webinar, would really like to just say thank you for your time. Today what we want to do, we want to spend some time thinking a little bit about the importance of being a clinical mentor, and just taking a few seconds to remind ourselves about the importance. We want to kind of situate the content of this training in a lens for continued improvement and continued implementation, especially the mentoring cycle, the GPS suite, and the modeling of effective practices related to questioning. And then we'll take a little bit of time and think about and talk about the idea of moving forward as a mentor teacher in the state of Tennessee. With that said, our agenda is fairly light, but it does have a lot of content within it. So we're going to take a little bit of time to talk about the impact of the Mentors Matter training initiative in your eyes. Like I said, we had a questionnaire that went out. We got some feedback that was really important, and I think really interesting to think about this work in a way that helps us understand the impact, and hopefully it'll speak to all of us. And if you have reflections about the impact of this training moving forward and you're interested in sharing those with us, feel free to email Kevin or myself, or you can share with the Mentors Matter at umich.edu as well. We're going to kind of then double back over the overarching focus of the Mentors Matter training initiative, thinking about questioning, feedback techniques. And one thing we talked about when we met the first day, and we'll kind of circle back to today, is this idea of applying the big takeaways and teacher actions. And then we'll take a moment and think about our next steps. So that's kind of going to be our agenda today as we move forward.
And I just want to emphasize that throughout this agenda today, we're going to be surfacing some of the examples of the work that you shared with us. So both the reflections that you shared on that Google form that you received in an email this week, and also you know, the GPS documents that you've submitted. So we've been looking through some of those. I think we have a lot more work to do to look through more examples and bring to the forefront other examples of your work and have all of us learn together and learn from one another. But we're excited to begin that work and to begin sharing your work with you all.
So I want to just take a quick moment. I did hear from one individual that they're not able to hear anything. Would you be able to take a quick moment and open up your chat window and let us know if you can hear us or if you are not able to hear us at the moment?
So we definitely have two people who are able to hear. So I don't know if this is a technical issue on our side or on the side of those who can't hear, but it looks like we're going to take a moment to try to look through. We definitely have at least 3 or 4 people who are able to hear us, so it's not a general problem. But we'll see if we can solve it to make sure everybody can follow along. You know what else we can do right now is, for those of you, if you can't hear, I can just give you my cell number. You can just call in here, and then you can listen to us through that one. Oh, that's true. But why don't we put that on the chat box? It's 615. I don't know how to select 2. We only have one person. Okay. 393 2421.
Okay. With that said, we'll monitor the phones and see if anybody is calling in. It seems on a broad sense everyone can hear us, except for a few, and that may be isolated. It's probably something on our end. But, you know, as we think about this agenda and we think about the impact of the Mentors Matter training, we wanted to hear from you, and we wanted to get an idea about how this training had impacted your work with the teacher candidate. And we know, and we'll talk about when we've shared with you, we believe deeply in the idea that mentors have a significant impact on the work that takes place, especially in the clinical experience. So we wanted to make sure that we got a good understanding of what it meant to you and how your commentary and your information could help us think about what we're doing right, what we can improve, and how we can keep moving forward. So not too long ago, we shared with you a questionnaire that had 3 questions on it. In this first slide right here says that the question reflects the how, if at all, has the Mentors Matter training initiative affected your work as a clinical mentor. And we pulled out these 2 quotes. The first one's rather long, but I think we can synthesize it down and see that the gist of it here is that the training streamlined and created a focused approach to working with the clinical mentors and between the clinical mentors and the teacher candidates. And so we are truly excited to see that this has had this type of impact. One of the great things that we also saw was a little bit of introspective and thinking about being more aware of what to look for and how to express it as we move forward. So we are truly excited about this work. And we think that your input, as we can see here, is quite helpful for us to think about a little bit more of an effect that we can create and we can produce. The second question is a question that says, has the content provided by the Mentors Matter training initiative impacted your own teaching practices? And you know, we know that this was primarily directed at the opportunity for mentors to work with their teacher candidates. But what was also interesting to see is that as we continued to work through this, we started to see and we started to gain feedback that identified that this work did provide content and information that would help us think about the overall impact. Now, one of the things that we saw is the impact that this had on your own teaching practice, this idea that this training, although focused on the interaction between yourself and teacher candidates, ultimately did have positive effect on your own work. And the thing that stuck out to me the most on this first quote is, what kind of feedback would I get? And I think that's something that is really helpful when thinking about lesson design and lesson structure, but also really when thinking about designing a lesson plan and working with the teacher candidate is what would be the feedback. As experienced educators, as individuals who are skilled at developing lesson plans, it was really nice to see that there was some reflection and introspection that helped us think more deeply about our own work. The other thing that stuck out here for me and for our team was of being more aware of how I plan, especially the type of questioning. So we were really excited to see this and to see that this had a little bit of extra effect. The third question that we asked on this particular questionnaire is, what was the single most important lesson learned? And I think these two go hand in hand, and I really appreciate the fact that the answers were shared in a way that would help us understand better what it is, what this was producing as an outcome. And those two things that stuck out was the idea of organization and preparation, which is always a good thing, but I think as a skilled educator, seeing that this was something that you pulled from this as an important feature is really neat for us to see. The other part that we were delighted with, I don't think there's another word, is to say that, you know, that meaningful feedback in what it is really a big step in this process. And we're starting to identify how the feedback cycle, the mentoring cycle, and the developmental cycle are all fitting together. Like, these are all important pieces of the puzzle, and we're just really excited to be able to be a part of it. I want to step forward and think about the focus, the multiple foci that we had for this training during the course of this semester. And we are spending some time, we want to jump in to talk about the research a little bit. I'm going to turn it over to Kevin.
I just want to first surface that I'm really excited I was able to merge the calls, and I think everyone can hear me now, one way or another. I was struggling to do that, so I apologize for the delays for those of you who were not able to hear us for part of this. If you're still not able to hear, please do put a note in the chat box, and we'll see what else we can do to solve this problem, and I apologize. We wanted to just highlight, you know, that this slide is something that you've seen before about what the research tells us, and I want to, I'm not going to reiterate all of it, but I just wanted to kind of remind everyone of the deep knowledge base that this is coming from and that this work is based on. And so I just wanted to make sure that we reiterate that, and I also wanted to take this opportunity to mention some of the new and exciting work that we're doing. I think the work we're doing right now is an important part of that. And in addition to that, we're working with our research partners at the University of Michigan to do a landscape study that's telling us an in-depth picture of what is the variance, how does clinical preparation look all across the state of Tennessee. So they've been doing in-depth interviews with different ed prep programs, variety of sizes, variety of places in the state, and they've really given us, helped us fill in the picture of what clinical preparation looks like and just how different it is across the state. So we feel like this training is a really good opportunity for us to provide an entry point to raise the bar for everyone, kind of lift all boats and make sure that everyone across the state of Tennessee is getting a high quality of clinical preparation. Another thing that's going on is we're looking at the impacts of clinical mentoring on the clinical mentors themselves. So there's research to see whether that's causing any issues. Sorry about that. There's a little bit of a problem with this merged call. Maybe end one of those. All right, sorry. So we're going to turn from that and look at a reminder of the work we did. And we want to remind ourselves of the practices that we were trying to develop and working to strengthen in all of us. We focused again on modeling effective teaching, on providing actionable feedback, and on developing supportive relationships with candidates. And at this moment, I wanted to turn your attention again to that handbook that you received, because I think as I was preparing for this webinar, I looked back at that and I was reminded of some other practices that we haven't talked about as much, or just that we haven't brought to the surface. So the handbook is really there for you as a resource to help guide you and help us keep our expectations high and explicit on things like incorporating practice into feedback, on utilizing observation data and student work in your provision of feedback to people. So that handbook is really something that I hope that, and we hope that you'll continue to use as a resource as you work with your teacher candidates. Turning next to the mentoring cycle, again, I think one of the things that Hugh and I were impressed by as we looked through the reflection feedback that you provided was how different people have tuned into different parts of the work that we've done together. So a number of people did mention how the mentoring cycle was a helpful framework for them in guiding their cycle of continuous inquiry and continuous learning. So we want to, situate our work in something that would help everyone guide their process of continuous learning. We also wanted to mention that these tools that you received are being continually refined. So as we continue to refine them, we will provide updates, and as we correct and improve those, we will send out to you the updated versions, and it'll be an opportunity for you to continue to receive those improvements. I want to take a moment to hear from you now. So the question here is, have those GPS tools increased your ability to provide effective feedback to your teacher candidates? And can you provide some specific examples that the rest of us here on this webinar could learn from? So if you can take a moment now to just answer that question in the chat box. It'll help give us a chance to hear from one another and learn from one another. It looks like, I hope now we've got everybody listening at some level. Yes. So if you could take a moment now to enter your thoughts on that question of how have these GPS tools increased your ability, if they have, and any specific examples you can share about how others could use those tools. Fantastic. We're seeing some responses pop in now. Hugh and I were just looking at each other saying, wait time. We have to practice wait time. We got a little nervous with the sound quality maybe being an issue, but let's hear some of these. So the tools have focused my feedback more with specific examples of what they are doing well and data to support it, as well as areas of refinement. I like the GPS documents because it gave me a guide on what to ask. It also allowed me to be consistent with each coaching session and to stay focused on the task.
I want to jump in here. What I think is really great is that this idea of consistency within the coaching, a lot of research will talk about mentoring and the importance of consistency. And when we design these documents, we spend a lot of time thinking about how we could best provide a set of tools that would enable you to be an effective and reflective mentor. And I really want to thank you, Mindy, for pointing out this idea of consistency, because I think that that's one thing that as we move forward, we really hope that this is a skill set and a toolkit that you'll be able to keep moving forward and working with future teacher candidates with, or sharing with other individuals these tasks and the different things that we can do as a cohort.
Yeah, that's great. There's a lot of great comments in here. It takes the guesswork out of what to talk about. Through the process, I've learned how to get more specific feedback and in specific areas. The GPS tools increased my ability to give feedback because it seemed to break down the lesson and allowed me to focus on a strength as well as focus on a skill they may need to work more on. This helped me to not go overboard but focus more on specific ideas. So I think, so we do.
One of the other things that we saw was this idea of being able to script what the teacher candidate is going to be working on in a way that leads to the reflection in the classroom. And those things are really important for creating some continuity and also thinking about what is going to be taking place within the classroom. So there are so many ways in which we can improve this experience and these tools, and we know that we really appreciate the input. And we're going to step forward real quick.
So we're going to go to the next thing. There is one more communication issue that we're going to check with one person. So we'll make sure we cover that. But I want to talk through now a little bit of the examples that we saw as we looked through your GPS tool suite. So we were hoping that the GPS tool suite would provide direction and guidance, and you're telling us now that it did. We were hoping it would be a co-constructed tool for the clinical mentor and the teacher candidate to identify areas that they could work on together and create a shared language. And it seems like what you're telling us is that for you, this is meeting those goals. So we're excited to hear that, and we want to show some examples now of the ways you use that so that you can learn from one another and see how your peers were using these documents. So this first one that we're going to go to is an example from the GPS planning guide. And I want to give you a chance to just read it over a little bit. This is asking, these are some really good examples, and these are taken directly from the documents you submitted. And one of the really the thing I liked to see, and I was really happy to have an opportunity to read, was the connected nature of these comments and how from the top to the bottom there was a common thread, and all of it was about increasing the capacity of the teacher candidates. And I think one of the things that I noticed in here was the development and the expansion of the thought. And so if we, when I read this in the middle of the page, it says add questions to lesson plan to help to get higher level questions.
what I thought was great was this idea of building those questions into your lesson plan. That's fantastic, and those are the things that we are just thrilled to see. I'm going to turn it back over to Kevin.
And the other thing I think that stood out to me from reading this example is that these are some of the highlights excerpted from this planning guide, but you can see a thread running through these where the teacher candidate and the clinical mentor are together developing an understanding of what a problem area and a solution to that problem. And by the end, you see next time a big takeaway that really addresses an area that in the beginning of the planning guide, only the teacher, the mentor, only the clinical mentor was identifying as a problem. So the clinical mentor was able to see we need to have these questions differentiated, and they need to be higher level thinking questions instead of just yes or no questions. By the end, the teacher candidate not only is recognizing that as an area to work on, but also has a plan for how to make that a reality. So they're going to be writing planning their questions in advance, and their lesson plan will provide an opportunity for the teacher candidate and the clinical mentor to touch base before and make sure those questions are in fact at a high level. So to me, looking at this example, I can see evidence of improved practice, and that's exciting to see that these tools are helping to lead to that. The next example is coming from one of the GPS reflection guides. Hopefully, I'm going to give you a few seconds here to just read through this, but again, I think you'll see that connected nature of how the reflections from the early questions end up driving the process towards a next step and towards an outcome where the teacher candidate is going to improve his or her practice. So you can see in this one in the middle there, the candidate is reflecting that during the first part of the lesson, they were only writing down the definition, and there was no questioning taking place. I'm doing all the thinking because I did not provide a pre-assessment to check for prior knowledge. And so instead, the candidate has reflected that instead of just starting off saying, I'm going to have them write down the definition, she's going to start, or he's going to start with a pre-assessment to check to see what they actually know and how she can then guide the lesson so that all students are learning and all of them are engaged right from the beginning. So you can hear and see that the clinical mentor has asked questions like, how could you present this lesson differently? How could you begin the lesson to get their attention early in the lesson? And you can see a response from the educator. And at the same time, you can also see a reflection from the questions that are in the GPS guide. Who was doing the thinking in the room? And that's something that the teacher candidate is reflecting on and saying, oh, at this moment, I was doing all the thinking, and I want to turn that thinking over to my students. So again, I think we see that the teacher candidate and the clinical mentor are working together through this, reflecting on the process and improving their instruction for the next lesson or the next day. It looks like we've had even more people able to join us. I think all of the audio problems are resolved, so I'm feeling very good, but I want to stop and see if anybody has a question right now. Please put it in the chat box, or anyone has a comment on these examples. We'll just pause about 10 or 15 seconds. All right, we're going to dive now into questioning. And again, what we're doing is we just want to really review and surface what are the big things, the big takeaways that we were hoping everyone would gain from this work. And make sure that everybody leaves here on the same page and ready to go out and continue to implement the new learnings with their teacher candidates and with their students. So we focused on questioning for a variety of reasons, and I think we've gone over these. I think we've also seen in your reflections on that Google form that a lot of people took this to heart and saw that this focus really helped them improve their own practice as well as improve the questioning practices of their future candidates. And I think that that focused effort is something that we believe would be effective, and it sounds like from what people are telling us that it has been effective for them. I want to take a moment here for you to share some more about that and see if what I'm saying is in accord with what you believe. So did you provide direct feedback to teacher candidates that was specifically focused on questioning or on question sequencing? And can you share any examples where you provided this feedback in terms of where in the mentoring cycle and how it looked? So did you provide that feedback in their lesson plans, like the example we just saw? Did you provide it during the teaching? Did you step in and say, here's another question you could ask? Did you provide it afterwards in post-conferences? Please take a moment to write in the chat box how you used that focus on questioning to provide specific feedback to your teacher candidates about their question sequences and about constructing higher level questions. As you're finishing up your thoughts, I just want to mention that we are recording this webinar, and we're going to get a recording, also a copy of all the chat comments, because I think that they'll be very helpful for us to review in more detail, and also for you to review. So we'll be happy to send out these comments without the names, but just to give everybody an example of all the learning and make sure that we're sharing with everyone. So I'm seeing a number of people say they would discuss this in reflection and in post-conference, talking about how to limit yes-no questions and put in more higher order questions, more questions about why.
I think one thing, as I look at these as well, I think the other thing that would be interesting is to twist this question just a little bit based on your response. If we're thinking about questioning and talking about questioning in the post-conference reflection, what might be some ways that we can think about developing and integrating questioning and higher order questioning into the pre-planning? We noticed earlier someone said an important skill is about building questioning into the lesson plan. And I'm wondering, would you be able to, or could you, think of a way that we could integrate questioning into the pre-lesson in a way that would provide some improvement at the onset?
I think another comment here, Tanina mentions that she used the reflective questioning with the GPS reflection guide, and it allowed them to discuss the, sorry, zipped away from me, discuss the student success and next steps. So I think that's an interesting connection, how we use questioning to help build an action plan. So questioning is not something we just wanted to use effective questions with our students, but if we have effective question sequences as we work with our teacher candidates, that can help our thinking as well. So, and Andrea suggests a card sort of questions to rank the questions and basically be able to analyze the questions you plan so to make sure that we're selecting the very best questions, the questions that go together in a sequence that makes sense and builds student understanding. So again, we will compile these responses, and we appreciate everybody's active engagement and feedback throughout this, because we'll be able to share even in more depth with all of you in the days to come after we've compiled all the responses. We're going to shift gears now and talk about feedback. Another big focus of our work was about delivering effective and actionable feedback.
So if you recall from our first day that we met together, one of the things that we talked a lot about were the different types of feedbacks and the way that feedback can be included in the mentoring cycle. And there are a lot of different ways that we talked about it, and we just want to bring this up as a reminder to think about how we think about the types of feedback as identified in research, especially when we think about positive feedback and feedback that can present a bit of a challenge. One of the things that we talked about was this idea of a data feedback or reflective questions, and the difference between personal opinions and inferences. And all of these were really important as we talked about feedback. And we just wanted to circle back to these and share them with you, because we think that it helps to position the use of the tool suite, the GPS tool suite, when being active within the mentoring cycle, and how the mentoring cycle and the tool suite work in tandem with another to really harness the strength of the mentoring and the activities that take place. And when we think about enacting the GPS tool suite, we thought about it really as a way to really overarchingly think about planning for a classroom lesson, being able to gather evidence from that lesson, and then really apply reflective feedback to processes that will ultimately lead to better outcomes in the end, and ultimately harnessing and building the craft of teaching within that teacher candidate. We think all of those are really wound together in one big circle that helps us think about the ways in which mentor teachers are so critically important to what takes place in that reflective, in that mentoring cycle.
I just want to jump in with a couple of other quotes we got from the Google form, from people's reflections prior to this webinar. One person said, "It has opened my eyes to how I give feedback. I feel like I give more reflective feedback now. I have my intern tell me what she thought about the lesson that she taught before I respond." So I think that really speaks to the importance of thinking carefully about the power of feedback and about the different types of feedback, and how we can be purposeful in not just giving feedback saying, "This is what I thought," but instead stepping back and thinking, how will my words, how will the choice of how I frame this be likely to be received by this teacher candidate? Does the teacher candidate need to be presented with data? Do we need to go through a series of reflective questions? What will help this teacher candidate take ownership over her own improvement or his own improvement? One other comment related to feedback was, it has made, and this was in reference to the GPS tool suite, it has made communicating with my teacher candidate a breeze. I'm able to give effective feedback without seeming too harsh or abrasive. So again, I think that structure of the GPS tool suite, combined with our thoughtful and purposeful reflection on what type of feedback will be most helpful to this candidate at this time, those two things we're hoping, and we seem to see evidence that they are helping people give feedback that's effective and that doesn't turn the teacher candidate into a mode of being defensive or worrying about a personal stake in it, but rather just everyone focused on improving the lesson for the next time.
And I just want to follow up briefly with what Kevin said about that ability to give critical feedback to a future colleague of yours in the classroom. And I think the idea of having a roadmap and a set of tools that enable you and enable clinical mentors to be able to have that hard conversation is something that we learned through this, and we're really appreciative of it. The other thing that we found in this is that there's this, we ran across this comment last week, which was this idea of a high leverage practice. And one of those that we found when we talked a little bit about this is this idea of a student work analysis tool. And we were able to just softly introduce this tool. But I think we have an opportunity here with this to really think about what the students are telling us about the practice of the educator and how the craft of the teaching in the classroom is really, you can see it in the product of the students. And so we think that the student work analysis tool will enable and facilitate a feedback loop that will fit right within the mentoring cycle. And so we really hope that you start to think about using student work as an indicator about what is taking place in the classroom. We also, along the way, we introduced a few ideas that we think that Nashville Teacher Residency helped us develop, and we adopted some of them as well, but we want to thank them as well. But there are some ways in which it's possible for you as a clinical mentor to have a set of pre-identified ideas that will help you improve the craft of the educator. And one of those ways in which you can be supportive and also develop a relationship is identifying precise positives, finding things in the lessons that you were looking for that they did well, things that they did in a way that was unique or really looked as if they had put some work into it. In the same manner, you had the big takeaways, which are these big lessons that you can take from the lesson. You did this really well, but I'd like to see you try this. Or now that you've mastered this, let's think about not just higher order questioning, but let's think about really sequencing the questioning moving forward. Again, the next steps, these items that will help us, help you as a mentor. The other one that stood out to us was this idea of teacher action. And we wanted to look at teacher actions through the lens of the Big Takeaways Roadmap. Now, this is a document we provided to you at the first face-to-face meeting, but it identifies the ways in which you can bring those tools, that set of skills together. And if you notice, for example, in this particular example, there's a problem of practice, and we got so many great examples of these from you along the way, that if you identify something such as frequently calling on a select group of students, that you want to address that. And as a skilled educator and as the experienced educator in the classroom, you have some skills that you can share and impart upon the teacher candidates. And in this case, the idea of ensuring that all students will interact with the lesson by calling on a variety of non-volunteers. This blank section, this idea of teacher actions, this is where you get to share your experience and your craft in a way that helps these particular future educators and future colleagues develop skill sets that are somewhat similar. And so I want to just, I know we're running low on time and we're getting close to the time period when we promised you that we would be letting you out for the day. But if you could just real quick, if you could think about how you have modeled some teacher actions, can you put in the chat box a teacher action that you introduced to your teacher candidate during the course of this work?
Great. Once again, Hugh and I are learning again the lesson about wait time, because we keep wanting to start, but then of course everyone's typing, and then once you hit return, then we get the whole paragraph coming to us. And a lot of people are responding privately, which is fine. But if you want to respond to the whole group, that's fine as well. As we scroll through these, I think one of the things that's standing out to me is that people are really using this practice in many different ways. Some people are talking about just the practice of how you use your body. So where do you position yourself in the room, and having the teacher practice walking around the room and modeling that, and then making sure that in action that teacher candidate is not just hiding behind their desk or standing at the front, but is moving around to different parts of the room to make sure all students are engaged. Other things, academic practices like using a KWL chart to pull prior knowledge. Being much more intentional with questioning, calling on students, volunteers and non-volunteers. One thing that I know I like to do is call on non-volunteers by using a deck of cards with all the students' names on them. Some people use the popsicle sticks. The cards I find helpful because I can put them in my shirt pocket and have them with me at any moment. But just reading through these, it's reminding me of techniques I've used. It's bringing to the forefront a lot of different examples. And I think these will be really exciting for all of you to read as we share them with you later, because there's a lot of expertise in this webinar. I'm going to move on from here. The one other comment that I just saw in earlier was how one of your colleagues responded about how this GPS tool suite and the focus on different methods of delivering feedback has been really helpful to her, because she's having trouble with her teacher candidate. And in that case, these structures and this thoughtful delivery of what you can deliver help give her a way to engage with that teacher candidate and help build on the few positive things that are happening, and be able to provide feedback in a structure that wouldn't provide for frustration and wouldn't lead to further shutdowns, but might open that door so that the teacher candidate can begin to build on what they already know. So again, I'm really excited. I know for me, webinars are not my favorite method of learning, but I feel like we've had a great fall with all of you. We've had a great 53 minutes or so today, and I just really want to thank everybody again for your engagement and for all this thinking that you've done today. We're going to turn to our next step and what we're hoping for. We're really hoping that as a result of this training, all of you will go out and with increased confidence and with increased skills, that you'll have seen what you're capable of, what the importance of your role. I think a lot of times we have not, as a nation and as an educational system, we haven't recognized the importance of clinical mentors. And I think this work hopefully is helping to bring that to the forefront. We're hoping that you will find a greater desire to continue to serve as clinical mentors. If your skills have been strengthened and if you've been inspired, we hope that you'll continue to come back and serve as a clinical mentor for more young educators in the future. And we hope that you'll have these specific skills in questioning practices and in delivering actionable feedback. We want to ask you to stay engaged with us in the coming months. It says on there, one of the bullets there is look for a short survey in May. You're actually, there should be another bullet there. There's going to be a survey much sooner than that. You'll be getting one in the next several weeks. And you may have already received one recently. So please do be on the lookout for emiils from myself, kevin.schaaf@tn.gov, from Hugh, or from mentors-matter@umich.edu, so that you can continue to stay engaged and that we can continue to learn from you. The data that you give us, the responses, the reflections on that Google form from this week, If you have not had a chance to fill it out, please do take a moment. It really should only take 10 minutes. It's just 3 questions, but those responses are really valuable to us, and it really helps us learn what we can do better, and also hopefully pass that learning on to all of you. We really couldn't have done this without you, so we want to thank you and challenge you to continue to stay engaged. And please continue to use these tools and, you know, help us strengthen them. So give us feedback on them as you use them. We will also commit to staying in touch with you, to providing you with updated tools. I know that, for instance, Hugh was just talking about the student work analysis protocol. I think one of our jobs will be to add that work into the handbook. Right now you have it available in your slides and in your handouts from day 2, but that's not part of the digital handbook, and we'll want to incorporate that in there. There's a lot of other work in that handbook. We didn't get to some of the work on live coaching. I did see a few comments that some people have looked through the handbook and have started to use some of those tools. So there's a lot more that this work can do. I think we've done more than scratch the surface. I think we've really begun to dig in deeply and begin to make an impact on your instruction and on your teacher candidates' instruction. We'll be looking carefully at the data to see if indeed my perception is borne out by what's happening with your students and with the students of your teacher candidates. But we also know that even though we feel confident about the work we've done, that there's a lot more to do. So we want to continue to stay engaged and continue to refine and improve all of our work. You can see our contact information there. We'll also send you, we probably should have had the Mentors Matter email on there as well, but you can feel free to reach out to us at those emails and contact us there. I want to end again by thanking all of you, by thanking the team coaches, the University of Michigan partners, Freed-Hardeman University, Union University, and University of Tennessee at Martin, and Nashville Teacher Residency as well for their work in this and helping to develop this. We are going to be continuing to do this work in the spring, so we want to keep you engaged in helping us improve that.
Yeah, I want to echo what Kevin said. Some of the best days this fall for myself, and I think for Kevin as well, has been being able to get out and work with you, to come out to Union and to UT Martin to be a part of these days. And it was really a product of your effort and your energy, and we just are so appreciative of that, and we thank you for taking the time to come out and be there with us. We also, you know, there are some logistical things that I will continue to work on to ensure that we get things taken care of, and I know one of the things that everyone will be curious about is when will we get the compensation. We are in the process of working that through the very long pipeline. We've been working on it since, I would say, mid-September, but we are working on it. I will keep everyone up to date on the speed at which that will be distributed. But like I say, we're working on that. If you have anything that you want to share with any of us, please reach out to Kevin or myself. We will be happy to help out. And the Mentors Matter, mentors-matter at umich.edu is also a place to reach out to us. We know that we have gotten really close to the 5 o'clock hour, but if you have any questions or comments, please add them into the chat box, and Kevin and I will hang out here for about 5 to 10 minutes in case you have any questions that we can share or answer for you. But otherwise, on behalf of Michael Derline, the Executive Director of Educator Licensure and Preparation, Kevin, myself, and everyone at the Department of Education, we want to thank you for your continued efforts. You are all amazing, and thank you so much for your efforts.
Definitely. Thanks, everybody. And again, look for updates from us as we continue to refine the practices and make the work we have even stronger. So thanks. Oh, and have a wonderful evening, and stay warm and safe. I think there's some snow out your way, so have a snowball fight, build a snowman, have fun.